If you feel like you keep going back to the same patterns, no matter how hard you try, whether it's a relationship, substances, or self-sabotaging, this is why. I lived in that cycle for years, trying everything and still ending up in the same place. So in this video, I'm not giving you a theory, I'm sharing with what actually worked, what I needed to understand and to do to start breaking those patterns for real. First of all, I had to start taking responsibility for my life. I had to stop blaming everyone around me for what was happening, as I thought, to me. Secondly, I had to understand what was triggering my trauma, or rather, the emotions I was suppressing through my addictive behavior. In my case, it was binging and purging. I realized that my environment was the main trigger for my numbing behavior. And for every one of you out there, it will be different, but for me, it was 8 years of being married to a narcissist. And once I started to work on creating a safer environment for myself, I finally got divorced. With that, my financial stability slowly started to rebuild. I disconnected myself completely from what I thought was friends, from people who weren't supportive of my goals, which I was continually trying to achieve, but also were partially the reason why I continuing using substances that were giving me a quick release of, happy hormones, not necessarily for the right reasons, but to numb myself, to briefly forget about suppressed, uncomfortable emotions. These type of friends needed to go, so I started to slowly let go of them. Also, certain family members needed to go because they would not respect me in a way every human deserves to be respected. When you finally get to the point in your life where things just cannot remain as they are, you finally start taking responsibility for your life. You will find many uncomfortable decisions to make, and one of them will be cutting off toxic people. Either you like it or not, it might be your friends, but also your family members. And actually, to make it easier for myself to let go of toxic people, either they were close friends or family members, I had to start asking myself, and you, my friend, ask yourself the same question. Would you rather have control over your life or continue letting others control your life and decisions and constantly crossing your boundaries without respecting them? Be honest answering that question. You have to be honest with yourself and understand that it's not others who do things to us, it is us who allow them to do it. I have started to learn more about the biology behind my addictive behaviors, and coming across a book called Recall Healing, I discovered that every physical symptom is not random. Recall healing, also called total biology, is a belief system developed by Claude Sabath, a French naturopath and former medical doctor who claims that physical symptoms are linked to unresolved emotional conflicts, and that the body is adapting or expressing something the mind couldn't express. And the true healing happens when you identify and resolve the emotional root, which is often called a biological conflict, emotional shock, or unresolved trauma simply stored in your body. For example, skin issues. They are an expression of a separation conflict. When it comes to digestive issues, it stands for indigestible solutions. Another example, throat problems, speaking about your truths you couldn't really speak openly. And interestingly, I discovered that the doctors behind this work didn't see bulimia as a primary psychological or behavioral problem. They formed it as a biological response to an emotional conflict. But my job was to figure out what that conflict was, the root cause of my 22-year struggle. And what I found out is that eating disorders are usually described as a mix of indigestible situations. Something in your life you cannot accept, you cannot process or digest emotionally, often obviously linked to either relationships, family dynamics, identity conflict, as well as feeling overwhelmed and just powerless in your life. I have read that book thoroughly, looking at the different symptoms, and once I actually read about them, it just made perfect sense to me. So I recommend you diving deeper into so-called recall healing or total biology. Dr. Gabor Mate actually talks so much about that because he's touching base on childhood trauma, on adverse childhood experiences, and those stored emotions from early childhood, they are expressing in your adulthood. But the recall healing has helped me, instead of regurgitating all my trauma, to actually pinpoint the exact emotion and situation in my early childhood that were at the root of my biological response to an emotional conflict. Next, I started mindfulness, and I just simply became consistent with certain activities. Things like meditation, physical activity, yoga, journaling, taking care of my physical vessel through clean diet, hydration, regular bedtime, evening self-care routines, sun exposure, breath work, cold showers, obviously only in the summertime, and supporting my body in healing from candida overgrowth with good supplements and good probiotics. And whether I was in the mood or not, I actually made one rule to make things happen. One non-negotiable rule to make it consistent. So I started treating mindfulness as a non-negotiable, as for me, that wasn't just sitting still. It was basically practicing anything that could bring my biology back into balance. And what I have learned is that three main chemicals drive how you feel and how you function. We're talking about dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, so-called happy hormones. And through consistency, the simple daily actions started to stack up for me and just regulate my body, bringing my system back to much more stable baseline. But one thing that became inevitable was journaling, my friend.
I would not take you for the journaling type.
Because journaling takes what's chaotic in your mind and makes it clear. It actually slows down your thought process, helps you to process that emotions instead of reacting to them, and turns unconscious pattern into something you actually can see and understand. And as an outcome, finally change. So with learning about the biology behind my behaviors and toxic patterns, I started to study neuroscience to actually understand how my brain, our human brain, actually works, and why my willpower to live a better, healthier, and just happier life was simply not enough to create that permanent change. Coming across a book called Brain Over Binge by Catherine Hansen, I finally understood that the urges weren't me, weren't my identity, but a conditioned, survival-driven part of my brain firing on autopilot for over 20 years. I realized that my job wasn't actually to fight it harder, but to stop feeding that loop, stop responding to it, and let my brain relearn that I was actually safe without that behavior. But at the same time, I had to slowly learn how to rewire my brain to not be in that constant fight and flight loop. I became more regulated, more grounded. I kept looking deeper into how my brain actually works. And that's when I came across the work of Caroline Leaf, a neuroscientist who focuses on how your thoughts shape your brain and how we can actively retrain those patterns instead of staying stuck in them. She created an app called Neurocycle, which is based on a structure 5 steps to help you become aware of your thoughts, process them, and gradually reshape them. And true talk, this process really helped me to slow things down, observe what was actually happening in my mind instead of just getting lost in it, and simply understood the mechanics behind my reactions. And it wasn't about forcing change overnight. I was slowly building that awareness, creating space between the trigger and the response, and teaching my brain a new, safer way to operate. And I also have to mention the work of Andrew Huberman, whose podcast became a huge source of practical knowledge for me. He breaks down how the brain and nervous system actually works, and thanks to his wonderful podcasts with many knowledgeable people, I started to understand not just what I was experiencing, but why, and more importantly, what I could actually do about it. Okay, my friend, and lastly, but I think most importantly, in my entire healing process, I turned to God. Not religion, but faith, a real relationship with something higher than me. It wasn't something I planned. It actually happens when I hit a rock bottom in my life, when my marriage was breaking down, when everything I thought what was stable was just collapsing, and I had nothing left, literally nothing left to hold on. And the only thing I could do was actually pray.
I'm not the praying kind, but I'm gonna pray for you, ma'am.
So I did, and I actually prayed a lot. And prayer gave me space to release what I couldn't carry anymore and to start trusting I wasn't alone in all that. So I began to reconnect with my intuition and with that quiet internal voice that didn't come from fear or overthinking, but from much more calmer and grounded place in my heart. This is how God is working. The source, the higher power, this is how he communicates with you, not through the external noise, but through stillness, through your heart. And the truth is, your heart and your logic won't always agree, and for a long time I ignored what I was actually feeling deep inside of my heart, and instead I just kept following through fear, conditioning, or what actually external reality was trying to tell me and persuade me. Because somewhere along the way, through years of struggle, I have lost that completely. And listen, there were moments during this time, things that happened, shifts I experienced that I cannot fully explain logically, but they reinforced something in me, that there is a bigger picture, a higher plan, even when you cannot see it just yet. I've realized that my role was to do the work I can control. So my habits, my awareness, my choices. But for everything beyond that, I had to learn humility and trust. Trust that not everything is happening to me, but for me. There's a line from Bible that fits here perfectly. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And that became a daily practice for me, to tune into what I was feeling deeply, to follow that inner guidance and not to fear or let the fear or old patterns to basically override it. Because listen, healing for me wasn't just physical or mental, it was also spiritual, and that on its own changed everything. So that was and still is my recipe for healing. To heal my eating disorder, to heal my attachment patterns, heal my childhood trauma, heal my heart and my relationship with basically myself. Real healing didn't come from finding the perfect therapist, and trust me, I've seen a lot of therapists throughout my life, or just endlessly going through my pain. It came from taking responsibility for my life, for my mind, my body, and my spirit, and staying consistent. This is the magic word for you, my friend. Even when I doubt myself, even when I slipped back into old patterns, and it's going to happen many, many times for you. So get yourself ready, because it's going to be a rocky ride, but it's worth it. True healing comes from understanding how you actually work, how our body and our mind, our brain works, how your nervous system operates, how your behaviors are connected, and simply using that awareness to make better choices over and over and over again. But honestly, deeper than that, it came from reconnecting with something I had completely lost throughout my life. Sense of inner worth and my connection with something greater than myself. And also realizing that I'm not powerless in this, that I'm not just reacting to life, I can respond to it. Because when you start seeing yourself not as a broken, but as someone who has been trying to cope, when you stay humble, stay grateful, and keep showing up, even imperfectly, that is when things begin to move. So healing is not just one moment, it's the decision you are making over and over again, my friend. And the truth is, no one can do it for you, but you're also not doing it alone. If something in this spoke to you, if you are in a place where you're trying to move forward, but it still feels hard, I've put together a couple of free resources to support you on that process. You can find them in the description below. And if you want to go deeper, I've made a full video where I break down exactly how I started to break those toxic patterns step by step. You can watch it right here. And don't forget to be patient with yourself, my friend. Keep showing up even when it's not perfect. It doesn't matter. Show up. And if that resonated with you, subscribe for more content like that. And I look forward to see you on the next one. Good luck, my friend.